Trail of Crumbs. Chapter 3. Time passed and soon enough I became Lafour's new loving wife. My acting served me well along with the potions to make me younger. My poverty had ended, or that was what I thought. I sat upon a cushioned seat in front of a mirror with the best beauty products in front of me, one of them being my potion of youth. Lafour came up behind me, wrapping his arms around me and kissing the top of my head, a problem I couldn't solve and had to deal with. My ship comes in today, and it should bring us more wealth than ever. Gretel and Hansel start their etiquette classes today. Are you sure you can handle teaching them? My eyes looked up to his. Yes, dear, the children will be easy to teach. I have a great lesson planned for today. Good, he kissed my cheek and then left the room, grabbing his coat and hat. Eyes drifting back to the mirror, I stared at the version of my younger self. I noticed a gray in my hair. I took the perfume bottle full of youth potion and sprayed it on my neck. The gray faded away. From the lower level of the house, I heard the pesky kids start to argue. Another problem in this house. Unfortunately, Lafour loved his children too much to ship them off for their educations. Adjusting my fine dress, I stood from my seat. As soon as I came out of my room and slammed the door behind me, the children went silent as they stared up the cold stone stairs. I raised an eyebrow at them. Hansel, a tall and dingy boy with dirt-colored hair, spoke first. It was Gretel's fault. She took the statue I got from father. She was playing with it and broke it. My chin lifted as I bit down on my lip while stepping down the staircase. I kept walking until I hovered over the 14-year-old. He reminded me so much of Jack when I first met the brat. Carefully, Hansel showed me the broken statue of a merman soldier. Gretel, the tiny blonde 6-year-old, pushed past her brother and held out a doll with its face cracked. But then he broke my doll. The girl started to tear up, though her eyes were already puffy. I took both the statue and the doll and stared at Hansel, never letting my contact waver. So because she broke your statue on accident, you decided that it would justify you breaking the doll? The boy looked down at his polished shoes. No. My tongue clicked. Good. Now both of you go to your rooms. It seems we will not be having lessons today after all. They both began to smile as any child would, but then I added, do you think that is a reward? They blinked in confusion. I wanted to slap their protective bubble away from them. They knew nothing of the world around them. There are many people who would die to be taught how to read and write so they could move up in life. Education is what truly separates the lower class from the upper, not blood. Perhaps one day you'll realize that. Now go. You may not leave your rooms until I say so. I turned and headed back up the stairs, watching them as they made their way to their rooms. Once they were inside, I went back to mine, glad I had an excuse to avoid them all day. I set the doll and statue on a bedside table. It was time for my weekly visit to the forest. In my large wardrobe, I took out a cloak and threw it on. When I left the master bedroom, I shut my door quietly so the children wouldn't hear. After that, I removed my shoes and crept down the stairs. Once I was on the mat at the front door, I slipped my heels back on and opened the door slowly. Little did I know my attempts to escape the house without the children knowing was a complete failure. Right as I left, Hansel came out of his bedroom and ran to the window to see where I was going. He did not follow, but I shall get to that later. Outside, I acted naturally, but I put up the hood to my white cloak. I didn't want anyone to know I went to the forest in my spare time. That would lead to suspicion. As I made my way there, I heard a cry from a young woman. She looked like filth as she came into my sight, and she was being dragged by two men. I watched as they came in my path. The men stopped, waiting for me to go first, and the girl looked up at me. Please, please, she cried to me, I'm not a witch. I'm not. I didn't bewitch him. We fell in love. Please. I looked down upon her with hateful eyes. Then you shouldn't be so obvious that you are one, looking like trash in a place like this. I continued on my path. The men carried her off. In my thoughts then, I believed the girl should die. If she truly was a witch, then she should have been smarter. I felt no pity. She could have done as I did, of course. Her challenge would be getting rid of her smell, which was what probably drew her lover away from her. The dark forest soon stood in front of me. I walked in without any fear. Through my years, the forest had become familiar to me. I found a cave in which I collected supplies for my potion. I had to brew more youth potions every week. If only I had married from the beginning, but everyone was well aware of Charlotte the witch back then. As I merrily collected my ingredients, my nose caught a whiff of a wretched and all too familiar smell. I paused, squinting my eyes to see further in the dim light. A giant leaped forward, her long hand reaching for me. I acted quickly, blocking her attack with my magic. Roots sprang from the cave walls and trapped the giant. A troll lunged at me next, but he ended up right next to the giant. Once I got a better look at them, I laughed. Well, Kara and Tralgar. Escaped from prison, did you? After all this time? Who are you, witch? Kara barked, but then she sneered, wait, it's you. But how? You look radiant. I know. And look at you, not as tall and mighty as the last time we met. Tralgar squirmed, trying to break free of the roots, but they held fast. Did you come here to finish us off? I laughed. Hardly, I came for ingredients. I have no other reason, so if you'll behave I won't tell anyone you're here. Kara frowned. She broke a hand free, but I summoned another root to wrap around her arm. She bore her teeth at me. If this had been years ago, I was certain they would have been able to overthrow me. However, I had grown powerful and I was not as scared as I once was. How about this, a token of my good faith? Carefully, I undid the latch of my pearl necklace. Giants and trolls loved treasure and wealth. They would not miss the chance to collect expensive jewelry, so I extended the pearls out to them. If you allow me to collect what I wish from your cave, I'll happily provide you with extravagant items such as this. Why not kill us? Kara asked. I'd kill you. At least she was honest. I sighed, because you are like me. Creatures the world wants dead. They praise us one moment, but then they turn back on their words. As I understand it, the giants and trolls were meant to be a superior species of elves. Now look at you. Tralgar and Kara exchanged glances. All right, deal. I see no reason why we shouldn't profit off one another. I smiled and released them from the cave wall. Tralgar eagerly snatched the pearl necklace from me, and the two of them studied it intently. While Tralgar stomped off into the darker parts of the cave, Kara remained by me. She was still as tall as a building, but not nearly the height she was before. Her arms were skin and bones, and her teeth were dull. How is it that you came across such wealth as a witch? You look like a noblewoman, Kara sneered. I used my strengths to get what I wanted. The only downside, I have to pretend to be a loving wife. However, it isn't so bad living with Lafour. It's his children who are the real nuisance. You could always kill him and then send the children off to boarding school, the giant said gruffly. I snorted. I'm not that annoyed with him, and I don't plan on becoming a murderer. Besides, you forget what kingdom this is. They may have just begun burning witches, but people accuse even the closest of people to them. Well, the giant said, if you ever need to kill someone, I'd be happy to do it for you. Not many humans pass this way anymore. My children get hungry. I cocked my head. Children? Yeah, a boy and a girl, she said. Breathing in, I focused on the smell of wet rock instead of the giant's filthy body odor. How nice. I shall keep that in mind. With a stiff nod, I walked off. She went the other way, deeper into the cave. In my mind, I pondered how funny it was that they had a boy and a girl just like Lafour. I pushed the thought aside, knowing it was silly. There was no reason to kill Hansel and Gretel as there was no reason to slay Kara and Tralgar. Upon returning home and to my room, I noticed in the mirror, my wrinkles were starting to show. I set my cloak and ingredients down and quickly sat on the stool in front of the vanity mirror. I grabbed the perfume bottle and resprayed myself, but there wasn't enough in it. My hands even began to tremble. It was a good thing I collected what I did. I stood abruptly, knocking down the stool. I raced over to my sealed chest where I stashed the golden pot and my brother's books. After I opened the chest with the key I kept around my neck, I scooped some of the liquid out of the pot and into the perfume bottle. Then I locked the chest. Walking back to the mirror, I sprayed myself several times. To my relief, the wrinkles in my face and the shakiness of my hands were gone. I breathed calmly and set the stool back in place. That was when I heard something move under the king-sized bed. "Hansel, are you under there? If you are, I'd advise you to come out before your father gets back." Dramatically, I paced over to the bed. Then hastily, I lifted the bed skirt. A small mouse squirmed from under the bed. Sking, I used my magic. The lady palm planted in a pot by the window stretched its stems and captured the mouse with ease. With my powers, I made the plant squeeze the critter till it no longer moved. With one of the other leaves, I had the plant open the window. The stem encompassing the mouse threw the wretched thing outside. I closed the window with my back turned to the door. I heard a creak from the door's hinges. Swerving around, I found the door was only blown open from the wind that escaped as I closed the window. That was what I thought then. Now I know that for certain Hansel was in the room the whole time, just not under the bed. I breathed and fell into a false sense of security. However, I made sure both children were still in their rooms. I glided out of the room and to the children's bedrooms, heading to Hansel's first. I found him lying on his bed, stitching up a stuffed animal. His eyes never strayed from his work as he said, "I've been thinking, maybe you were right about learning. Tomorrow, I want to start school. I'm glad you feel that way. You may come out. Your father should be back soon, and I want us to be right outside to welcome him home." "I'll go get your sister," I said to the boy, convinced that he truly hadn't been in my room. Relaxed, I went to Gretel's chambers. I found the girl lying on the ground and staring up at the ceiling. She was singing nonsense, but she cut off when I walked in. She sat up, full of energy, even though she looked out of it when I came in. "Can I go out now?" "Yes," I said, "but you are going to wait for your father with Hansel and me." I held out my hand to the girl. She hopped to her feet and took my hand with her tiny fingers, her hair bouncing. Thank goodness for Hansel that she existed, otherwise I wouldn't have been as kind as I've forced myself to be. In many ways, Gretel reminded me of myself. I once sang nonsensical tunes when I worked as a maid long ago. I dreamed of castles in the sky, only to realize it wasn't as great as I believed. We reached the front where Hansel waited. Shortly after our arrival, Lafour's carriage pulled up. Gretel and Hansel cheered as he got out, but I knew something was off from seeing nothing in his arms for his children or even bundles on top of the carriage. I silenced the children as their father stepped out of the carriage with a glum face. Lafour came over to me and slammed down on his knees, resting his head on my stomach. "It's gone," he muttered, "the ship and everything with it. And it wasn't just that ship, all of my vessels. One struck by lightning, the others swallowed by the waves in the storm." Gretel stepped forward and asked, "What does that mean, Papa?" He looked at her and said wearily, "That our life of luxury has met its end. We are going to have to get a smaller house, sell many of our possessions, and reduce the staff. I will have to start over." At that moment, my heart traveled back to its frozen state where reason became clouded. There I was, about to hit the bottom again. The marriage turned into a waste of my time. It had barely been 3 weeks since we married. This was what I got for my efforts. My hands clenched into fists. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Hansel peeking at me. It was a look that told me I should watch him more carefully than I had already been, but I still wasn't sure if he was in the room when I used my magic. "Something needs to be done about this, Lafour," I said to him. He stood and acted more dignified. Pulling me in, he said, it will only be for a little while. I am sure. We just need to gather some money to buy one ship. One single ship. After that, everything will slowly go back to how it was this morning. I did not move or take comfort in his words. As old as I was, I could no longer wait. For my whole life, I had been waiting, rotting away. But I decided I would wait. I would wait to see what would happen.